Trustees of the Greenville Independent School District to order. Let the records show that a quorum of board members is present and that this meeting has been duly called and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. Thank you guys for coming. It's great to see so many faces. At this time, we're going to stand for the invocation led by Mike Rackley, and then we're going to say the pledge.
Shall we pray? Heavenly Father, we ask you to bless each and every person here tonight, Lord. We ask you to bless each and every member of Greenville Independent School District. Lord, we ask you to give us wisdom in all the things that we talk about and decide on tonight, Lord, and may we glorify you in all that we do. Pray these things in the Holy Son's name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Come on in and take a seat. At this time, I would like to just say a couple of words. We have a board member that is departing our board after 15 years of service. Trina, I wanted to personally thank you for the years of service and dedication to GISD, not only as a school board member, but also as a member of several other committees and PTAs. We're very blessed to have you on our board, and I wish you the very best. Would you like to say anything?
Yeah, I would. Okay, so I'm not there. It's been a privilege and an honor to serve the last 15 years. I have thoroughly enjoyed it, not only being on the board, but as a volunteer at almost all of the campuses now at this point. But one thing I want to stress, the board is not assistant superintendents, and we need to just make sure that we focus on the what and not the how. She has a whole staff of people to do the how, but we're the what, and that makes our jobs a little easier to do. So, thank you, and I wish, what I wish most is that a bond passes and we get the middle school and LP Waters finally on the road to construction. And I will do anything I can to assure that that happens. We cannot let our kids continually be in buildings that are not adequate for their needs. So, thank you, Sharon.
Thank you, Trina. We'd like to take a group picture really fast with you, Trina.
Sure.
How are we going to do it? Right here? In here?
Start recording. I want to hear from you, not that
Okay, at this time, we're going to have the oath of office administered. Will District 2, Angie Taylor, District 3, Bonnie Jean Stewart, and District 4, Woodruff, please come to the front.
Just in front.
I probably just need to speak closer to it.
Just in the front. This one. Ready? Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. In the name and by the authority
Name and by the authority
of the state of Texas,
of the state of Texas,
I state your name,
I, Angie Taylor,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the duties
that I will faithfully execute the duties
of the office of
of the office of
Greenville ISD Board of Trustees District Number
Greenville ISD Board of Trustees, District 2
of the state of Texas,
of the state of Texas,
and will, to the best of my ability,
and to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the United States
of the United States
and of this state,
and of this state,
so help me God.
so help me God.
I have some things for you guys to sign real quick.
All right now.
Trish, anybody here want to take a picture with you? Do you have anybody here you want to take a picture with?
Just sign it, then I will fill it.
Take a picture with you. People here. So I'm gonna call her. She wants to get a picture with me. And then I have to sign, and I can fill the document for you. So just print, sign. Set it down. You do have lots of people. Are you going to, do you want to take a picture really fast with your family? Or you want to wait to the end? Okay.
We can get one of three. We can do one of three.
Just sign.
Let them do each face for you. That's my better side.
That's yours.
Those stairs are dangerous.
Very.
One, two, ready, go. One, two.
I'm gonna do it.
So are you going to say nomination or non-voting for the president?
you do that,
Okay.
even though just for the record.
At this time, we're going to organize the board. And so I need to elect a president pro tem. And I need a,
You can do it. We can let you know.
okay. All right, so we're going to have Sharon be our president pro tem. We have to do this so that we, for the time being, we just give her the authority while we reorganize the board, both president, vice president, and secretary, and then she will give the control back over to the president. Is the board fine with that? Go ahead, Ann.
Yeah. Normally, what we do is elect the pro tem.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
She said that she talked to,
So go ahead if you want to.
okay. Can I get a nomination for the president pro tem?
I nominate Sharon Booth as president pro tem.
I second.
Okay, with a nomination by Bonnie and a second by Tish. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. So nominations are now in order for the office of president.
I nominate Aletha Cruz as president.
Second.
Second.
Okay, are there any other motions?
All those in favor?
No, I have to say that.
Okay.
Okay. All those in favor of Aletha Cruz being president of the school board?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, so that is a 7-0 unanimous vote. And so, Madam President, I will hand it back over to you.
Okay. Okay, now we're going to move to election of the vice president. Do I have any nominations?
I move Mike Bradley to serve as vice president of the board of trustees. I was going to recommend Roger.
Okay. Okay, I have a nomination of Mike Rackley and a nomination of Roger.
You're one vote.
Okay, so are there any other nominations? Okay, then I will say all those in favor of Mike Rackley, please say aye.
Aye.
Is that 4?
Raise hand.
Yeah, raise hands, please. Okay, 4. All those in favor of Roger? Aye. 3. So Mike Rackley has the votes, so he will be the vice president. And then it's 4, basically. Okay, now we'll move on to the election of secretary. All those, are there any nominations?
I nominate Ms. Woodruff.
Okay, any other nominations? All those in favor of Tish Woodruff being the secretary?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. I do want to reseat us once we get back into our normal spots, but I think we'll just stay here because it's so crowded right now. Do you guys have any questions, or are you okay with this reseating based off what we talked about last time?
What did we talk about last time?
The way it is now.
I like the way it is.
Everyone.
Okay, well, we'll talk about it the next meeting then. At this time, we're going to have a superintendent present our demographer report, or
So Bob Templeton from Zonda will be presenting our demographics report. He'll let you know the time frame in which it was taken and show some data just to show. Demographer report is important to make sure that we know how many kids we're anticipating. So we thought we would show you this before we take open comments.
Well, good evening, Board President, members of the Board, Superintendent Booth. It is my pleasure to be with you tonight. This process began actually a couple of months ago, where we reached out to the city, we've interviewed the city planning staff, we researched the housing market very closely, We've geocoded your students so that we can understand the students per household, how the mobility is affecting the attendance areas, and then we've compiled a 10-year enrollment forecast. We have worked with the district a couple of times over the last several years. I checked the report we did last year, and this year's projections, or this year's enrollment, came within 7 kids of what we forecasted last year. So I was real pleased to see that our forecast that we did last year was right on spot. Now, the one thing that's a little different is we're seeing some pretty significant changes in the economy related to the inflation. The inflation is at 40-year highs. We're also seeing some changes in the unemployment rate. You know, the unemployment rate's kind of bounced up and down just a little bit over the last couple of months. Overall, the unemployment rate is still relatively low. We are still expecting to see continued job growth in the state of Texas and specifically in this region. So job growth is still forecasted to be really good. The only challenge that we're seeing really is the high cost of housing, the high cost of inflation. When we look at the overall enrollment trends across the state of Texas, no doubt the pandemic still has played an impact on the overall enrollment trends. But when we look at the map on the right, that is showing the annualized enrollment change in all the school districts across Texas. We've got over 1,000 school districts in Texas. This year, the state's enrollment grew 92,000 kids. That's the highest number that we've seen in almost 20 years. So we did see a part of that COVID drop from 2 years ago come back this year. So we did see a little bit of a rebound. We do expect that we're going to continue to see somewhere between 40 to 60,000 kids per year across the state of Texas. This is just a bar graph showing that enrollment change. You can see in the 2021 year, that's the year of the pandemic, that's the year that the state's enrollment dropped 122,000 kids. Last year it grew 55,000, and this year 92,000. Again, Texas leads the country in overall population growth, and so we are still seeing very strong migration coming into this region. Now, when we look at the kind of zoomed into the Dallas-Fort Worth area, the darkest red school districts are the school districts that have seen the highest amount of 5-year growth. You'll notice I've outlined the Greenville School District in blue, and the 5-year enrollment pattern for Greenville is still showing to be slightly negative, but that was mostly the pandemic year and the year before the pandemic. So 2019, the district experienced an enrollment drop, and in 2020, it experienced an enrollment drop due to the pandemic. But then last year and this year have seen, consistent growth. We had good enrollment growth this year. And as you'll notice, the population growth is moving east out of Dallas. We're seeing very strong growth in Rockwall, Royce City, Community, Caddo Mills. The growth is definitely moving this way as it expands outside the DFW region. Now, this is the overall housing pattern for the DFW region. We track all of the housing in the region, and you can see the new home start rate peaked in 2022. That's when the single-family rate for construction got up over 50,000 homes per year, and that's when the Fed started raising the interest rates about a year ago. So the interest rates have caused the housing market to slow down. So we are seeing a decrease in start activity across the region. The closings are still catching up because we have significant numbers of homes that are still under construction, and the builders are starting to offer some discounts and some incentives to help move those homes. So overall, we're still closing a record-breaking number of homes in the area. Now, when we compare Greenville to the school districts in the DFW region, based on new home construction, roughly about 263 single-family homes per year. But when you factor in the mobile homes, that's the big area that we see is about to really change for the district, is the increase in mobile home development. That's the big difference between the work we did a year ago. The mobile homes have really come back across the region. So it's not just something we're seeing just here. We're seeing it in Wills Point. We're seeing it in some of the other outlying areas to where it's affordability that's driving that mobile home rebound. So the mobile home communities are really making a strong comeback. You've got 690 vacant developed lots that are on the ground ready for builders to build on You have 3,900 future lots that are in the planning stages. Now, this is just single family. On the manufactured home count, that's closer to 1,500 manufactured housing that's in the works to be added to this inventory. So we really are expecting to see a pretty significant surge in the enrollment due to the combination of the single family and the manufactured housing growth. Now, this is how it's tracked by quarter. You can see 2021 and 2022, very strong years for single family construction. The first quarter did slow a little bit again because of the rising interest rates, but we're still closing 45 single-family homes in the first quarter. I expect we're going to see in that 40 to 60 number in the second quarter of closings because of the number of homes that are under construction. This is breaking down the single-family home data by your current elementary attendance zones. Very strong activity in the Bowie and the Lamar elementary zones. Over 103 single-family starts in the Bowie zone, about 75 starts in the Lamar zone. Crockett had 25, Carver has 8. Now, the vacant developed lot column, very strong numbers in about 3 zones. Bowie has the highest amount of vacant developed lots, 266. Carver has 223, and then Crockett has 177 vacant developed lots. The future column, those are additional phases of current developments. There are also some new developments that are in the very early planning stages, and you've got about 3,900 future lots. So we've got plenty of land available, plenty of lots to see very consistent and steady single-family growth. As I mentioned, the growth is really starting to move east out from Rockwall, Royce City into this region. Now, here's the map of your district, your current elementary attendance zones. Those green shaded areas are the active subdivisions that are building single-family homes. The yellow shaded areas are the future developments that are in the planning stages. And when I looked back at last year's report, we had 4 futures, and this time we have almost 24 futures. So the developers have really picked up their activity and their pace. The developers have not slowed down despite the rising interest rates. You'll notice a lot of futures in the Carver, Bowie, and Lamar zones. That's where we see the highest amount of future activity. Now, some of these futures are going to take 2 to 4 years before they are delivered and become active. So it's going to be a while for some of these, but some of these others may become active within the next 2 years. Now, I'm going to touch on some of the highlights. Buchanan Ranch, 384 single-family lots, 167 vacant developed lots are on the ground, the streets are in, and there's an additional 217 future lots that are in the planning stages. The website for the builder indicates that homes will be coming soon, so definitely could start to see some activity here. Likely going to see families moving into this neighborhood during the next school year. Greenville Villas is 100 homes, 96 vacant developed lots. You can see it's just been delivered recently. There's 3 homes under construction. That price range is starting at about $300,000 and goes up to $400,000. It's just north of the high school. Jackson's Run, 339 total lots, 250 occupied homes, so it's been occupied for a while. 16 homes under construction, 11 vacant developed lots with 62 futures. Altura Homes is the builder there. Those homes are starting at about $220,000. Stonewood Estates, 296 total lots, 34 homes under construction, 44 vacant developed lots with an additional 78 futures. Scott Ellis Homes is the builder, and those homes are starting in the low 300s. Stratton Place, 223 lots, 109 vacant developed lots. It's really just getting started. 114 future lots. Trophy Signature Homes. Those homes start at $350 and go up to $450. The website there is also saying that homes will be coming soon. Now that's kind of the highlights of the single family development across the district. I want to touch on the multifamily picture for the region. This graph is illustrating the occupancy rates across the DFW region. You'll notice that the occupancy rates peaked in 2022, and the rent rates were accelerating at a very strong rate in 21 and in 22. You'll notice that the occupancy rates have started dropping. The primary reason for the occupancy rates to drop that much is we've added so many units. So across the region, we've added 26,482 multifamily units, which has caused the occupancy rates to go down, which has also caused the apartment owners to start softening the rent rates. So we've seen a little bit of a softening in the rent rates here in the region. Now, when we look specifically at the Greenville's multifamily picture, this was also significantly different than the report that we did last year. So we've got a tremendous amount of multifamily under construction right now. We've got about 8 multifamily projects that are currently active that have more than 2,850 units. Now keep in mind the manufactured housing shows up in our data as multifamily. So this is where we'll talk about the multifamily. Even though some think of multifamily as just apartments, for us, multifamily is also the manufactured housing because there will be multiple homes on one owned parcel. They don't typically own the lots that they're on. Now, some cases they do, but we do consider them all under the multifamily umbrella. We have an additional 1,220 multifamily units that are currently in the construction time period in 5 separate projects. So this is the area where we do expect to see pretty significant growth, and I'd say the biggest change from our projections that we did last year. This year's projections over 10 years is about 300 students higher than what it was last year. And again, this is the reason for that big change. Now I'll touch on some of these projects. This is the FM 499 mobile home park. It's about 312 capacity for the number there. The first move-ins are expected in December, so this will impact the enrollment in the Crockett zone and in your middle school, high school zone this year, starting in the middle of the year. The adjacent mobile home community has a yield of 0.55 students per home. So we expect to see a very similar yield of 0.55 students that could be moving into the FM 499 community. And it'll take them, it might not take them but two-ish years to fill it up. They tend to fill them up pretty quickly because once they get the streets in, it's just a matter of pulling them in and hooking them up. So it tends to be demand driven. So it'll likely be within 2.5 years that it'll be full. Now this is the Highway 34 mobile home park. It's 115 capacity. July is the completion date, so we could be seeing some move-ins there very soon. The neighboring mobile home community has a yield of 0.31 students per home in the Town and Country mobile home park. Now here's a future, and this is the biggest one. This is the 380 mobile home park. It has a capacity of about 1,350 homes. It's in the planning stages. The city of Greenville has received a concept plan, so we don't have an official timeline of when this could be active, but I would think depending upon the success of the other communities, how fast they fill up will determine the timing of when this comes online. But I expect it will be coming online definitely within the next 3 to 5 years for sure. You can see a lot of information there and a lot of change from the previous report. One of the things that we're tracking across the state of Texas definitely has a limited role here, but it is something we watch very closely, is the charter school expansions. Charter schools are expanding across the state of Texas. This year, the total charter school enrollment was around 404,000 kids. You can see that number's growing anywhere from 12 to 25,000 per year. Now, we use the birth rate data to help guide us with the kindergarten projections. Historically, your birth rate ratio has been anywhere from 0.7 to 0.83 to 0.87 back in 2017. We've tried to find some middle ground in there, so we've used about a 0.77 to 0.79 over the next 3 to 4 years. So definitely that kindergarten number could float up and down anywhere from 25 to 50 kids, depending upon where in that ratio that we end up falling. You do have a very high pre-K number. I noticed your pre-K 3, pre-K 4, very high, which is a strength in my opinion, and will likely continue to keep that pre-K or kindergarten ratio on the higher side. Now here's a look at our projections at the grade level. So you'll notice we're forecasting about a 2.1% growth for next year, which would put you at about 5,536 students. In 5 years, your enrollment would be at 6,209, which is growth of about 800 students over that 5-year period. And again, we try to find a middle ground of being not too conservative, but not too aggressive. I think I guess one way that I would characterize this number is, if you look out 7 years, if you look out to that 6,800 number, I can tell you with 100% certainty, you are going to hit 6,800 students. The only question is it going to happen in 5 years, 7 years, or 8 years? It's not a matter of if these numbers are going to happen. And I can say that with confidence because of what I'm seeing in the single family forecast and in the multifamily forecast. So this is an area that we expect to grow for a long time. So it's not a matter of just running through this inventory that we've shown you. There's additional land. I don't know if you remember the Hunt County project that was on our report last year. It's a Walton development project that's in the far west corner of your district. It's still several years out. So it's not going to impact the district, in my opinion, within the next 5 years. But at some point, that land is so massive, it splits 3 different school districts. At some point, that's going to be active, and it'll be a massive master plan community. And I'm just painting the picture of the growth is coming. It's going to continue to come. You had a really good year of growth this year, and I expect it will continue. Here's what it looks like at the campus level. So we modeled in some changes here. You'll notice that the green is when they are approaching capacity. The yellow is when it exceeds capacity. You can see at your elementary campuses, you've got a couple of elementaries that are going to be approaching capacity within the next couple of years. Your Travis 5th and 6th grade center, it will be at capacity next year. Your middle school will be approaching capacity in about 4 years and will be at capacity in 5 years. Your high school is in pretty good shape until you get out to about 2031, 2032. So overall, you're going to have some needs across all the grade levels over time. Key takeaways: the first quarter lot deliveries and the housing starts were down slightly, but year over year, the builders look to reduce the inventory as the economy still faces headwinds around high inflation and the higher interest rates. We've got 18 actively building subdivisions, over 700 lots available for builders to build on. We have 23 future subdivisions with nearly 3,850 lots that are in the planning stages. We've got groundwork underway on about 115 lots. And then there's the mobile home picture, the mobile home side to this equation. We do expect your enrollment will be at about 6,200 students in 5 years and approaching 7,800 students in 10 years. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions?
everyone to fill a card. If you haven't filled out a card already, you can still do that while we're looking through these, so these people are coming up. If you'd like a card, you can still fill one out. So if you'd like one, please raise your hand. We want to make sure everybody gets heard. Because we have so many people that will talk today, we are going to limit the time to 2 minutes. If you have a question that you're wanting to ask, you can incorporate it in your statement, and when you're done, we will answer that question. That's another difference in what we usually do. We don't usually do a back and forth conversation. That's not what we do, but if there's a specific question that we can answer, we're going to try and answer it tonight. I'm running this similar to what I do whenever we do coffee talk, which we've done for a couple of times now. Very open, transparent conversation so that we can all be on the same page. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start unless there's any questions. The only other thing I want to note is that when other people are speaking, please give them the floor. Please do not be talking over them. If you don't agree with them, please keep those comments to yourself. You'll have your time to talk. If for some reason it gets too loud and we can't hear, I'll call order. If anyone becomes disrespectful, I will call out of order and I'll have someone come down and speak to you. I don't think anybody here will do that, but just wanted to put that out there. First person I have on my cards is Byron Taylor.
Thank you, GISD Board. I don't think it comes any surprise. I think I'm preaching to the choir about whether or not I'm for the bond. I was honored to be on the first committee. I did my homework back then. I firmly believe the Greenville ISD district needs a generational reset of their campuses. It means a lot of things. It means logistics. It means economics. One of the things that I've noticed in the last bond elections, I want to give you credit, Alith, on the way you comment with people. You do a very good job of explaining. Some of the things I think we can improve on are our logistics. I think there's some assumptions that everybody comes here and enters this grade at kindergarten and they go through the whole school. That's what's going on. I think there's also some confusion about what mandates are and what is required. I think we can do better on those kinds of things. But long story short, I think you want to know whether or not people are for the bond tonight, and I'm firmly for that bond, and I firmly have done my homework, and I try to assist in that way. Thank you.
Thank you so much. My next card is for Mr. Larry Davis.
I'm going to turn this around because I want to address the audience as well as the board. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I wear the t-shirt because I mean it. I love Texas schools and I love GISD. I'm a Crockett kid, lifelong Greenville resident, graduated here in 1971, 52 years, I can still do the math. I was in this building 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade. We're boomers. We had the biggest class at that time to ever go to Greenville school. They brought the kids over Carver. We had one-way halls and one-way stairs. My locker was at the end of this hall, first hall down here, and I had a class at the annex of the wing that was built. And to take my books to my locker to get books for my next class, I had to go all the way down the stairs, back up, and then come back up to go to the class up here. We don't want to go back to that. We've got to get away from that. Our kids of the future should not have to go through what we did 50 years ago, 50 some odd years ago. We need this school, we need this bond, we actually need more than one school. You've seen the numbers, you know the growth, you see the houses being built, and everybody can, oh, I don't want my taxes going up. You're gonna share this tax burden with all these people moving to Greenville. We're not gonna do this by ourselves. And if we don't do it, you look at Rockwall, they didn't plan for the growth over there. And Greenville, the city of Greenville is not planning for the growth here. There are no new streets. Rockwall, it takes an hour to go from one side of town to the other. We're gonna see that here pretty soon, if something doesn't change. Our school district is trying not to make that mistake. And we need to support these folks. We need to have this bond. And, well, you don't want to pass this debt on your kids. You're not. You're building you're building schools for the kids so they'll have a good place to go to school. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. My next card is for Mrs. Jan Teeter.
How are you doing? Good evening, board members and Ms. Booth. I would like to begin by thanking all the board members and the staff at GISD for your hard work and dedication to the students of Greenville. Thank you for this opportunity to speak in favor of a school bond in the same building from which I graduated. The building was old then. I believe I am speaking more to the members of this community than I am the school board. I believe the school board will vote in favor of holding another bond election because this is what our district so desperately needs. I began my teaching career some 35 years ago in the building that is now LP Waters. There were already problems with the building then, and I know that hasn't improved. One problem was that there weren't enough bathrooms for the children or the teachers. Still has a problem there. Another issue is safety. The location is too close to the street, a very busy street, and if they build a new building, they can put it further away from the street. This building needs to be replaced. The middle school building is completely inadequate for the student population. The students that attend this school are big kids. I've witnessed hormonal teens squeezing through the halls, changing classes. My grandson had to eat in the auditorium because the size of the cafeteria wasn't big enough to accommodate all the students, even with the creative lunch scheduling. The rooms are out of compliance with the state's mandate for size per student. Imagine yourself teaching 35 teens in an extremely crowded classroom. No, thank you. The bottom line is we need new schools now. Let's trust the community in doing what is right for our children in Greenville. Let's go for another bond. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. The next person I have, I'm pretty sure this is Francisco Davis.
How are y'all doing today?
Good.
Y'all doing good?
Yes.
All right, I'm doing good too. I thank you for this opportunity to be able to speak to the school board today and just allowing everybody to come down and express their opinions. I actually did not grow up here, but I have lived here for over probably the last 22 years of my life. I have a daughter who attends high school here now. She's been in the high school for 2 years and have several cousins and family members that have lived here all their lives. I actually am in support of a bond as long as it is affordable for our community here, and I support it 100% as long as, you know, we all, especially with the growth that's coming, are shouldering the financial responsibility and not so much just the community that is currently here now. Listening to the growth numbers, I had a specific question speaking to, we heard what the potential range is on the homes and all of the new developments as far as the single family homes. So I guess my question is actually directed to the demographer, is that how you say that?
Yes.
The demographer. I wanted to know what the price range was on the mobile home developments as well. We heard that the homes that are gonna be built in our community start off at like $300,000 and up. So, you know, what would he said the mobile home was more affordable, maybe, I don't know if those were his exact words, but he did say that it might be more cost effective. And we were given the size of them, but like, is there any price ranges as far as those go?
I think that there probably isn't something as specific as a price range as much as there is a date or when was your mobile home built? Usually there's like only this age, because people can buy mobile homes anywhere and have them put there. And,
Right.
And there's probably a lease fee on the land part where they may own the building or the mobile home, but they may have to lease. My dad actually lives in Timberland, so the way that that works is he bought his mobile home. It was $75,000.
Right.
He leases the land.
Okay.
So, you know, so that I can only tell you that from the experience that I have. I'm not sure the demographer would have that answer, but it's something that we could look for you.
Okay.
And possibly get back to you.
Yeah, just like I said, I don't know who will be bringing those mobile homes in, if it would be like independent people buying them and then moving in and just, you know, even if we could just get lease numbers, I would like to know that, like, what would the lots be leased at, you know, versus somebody buying or renting or whatever the case may be. So,
Mr. Templeton, is that something that you could get? Thank you. We'll get that information to you.
all right, thank you, I
Yes,
appreciate
you're
it.
welcome.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming. Okay, the next one I have is Emily Kozine. I see here that you said you don't want to, there's no need for you to speak, but you would like me to read your questions? Okay. How would the bond issue benefit all kids? And what would the third bond consist of? Is that correct? Okay. So how would the bond issue benefit all kids? Well, if we're doing a specific school, I'm trying to see where you're coming from on this question, but I'm guessing it's because it's two separate schools that doesn't benefit all kids. But pre-K, if kids start at pre-K and then we build a pre-K, then those kids grow up in our school system and they will benefit for their whole life. If you're asking me how will kids that are seniors benefit from us building in LP Waters, that's not really a question that I could answer. We're just going off of the buildings that need to be repaired because they're old and they're breaking down.
I don't want to walk up there. My question was more also for LP Water. Every child's not accepted to LP Water.
Unfortunately, what I would like you to do is if you're going, so here's the way that I want things to go tonight. I don't want it to be a back and forth. I don't mind answering your question specifically, and I don't mind giving you time to come and express your concerns for a bond or against a bond. But the thing is, I don't want to go back and forth because I need to have everybody have a chance to speak. And if I did that with every single person, we could be here till midnight. So, but I would like you to come up because I know that there is some concerns. Would you like the mic? Sure, sounds great.
And my question is on like for LP Waters, everybody. Pay taxes and raise their taxes, how are you getting benefits? I'm not for or against it, I'm trying to see if I will be.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so we're looking at replacing specific schools that are, and the past bond efforts too. What you're referring to is the ag barn that we had on the first bond effort that was taken off been picked up by private citizens raising money for an ag barn, and they've actually collected quite a bit. At this time, we don't know what we're going to put on the bond effort because we're asking the public to tell us if they even want us to go on to pursue a bond effort. We learned a lot of things the last 2 times about how the public feels and the things that are roadblocks for them. And we have done our best over the last year to address a lot of those concerns and be very honest and upfront about many things. Any question that has been raised in the public that we can answer, and we've answered all of them, I believe, we've done. And so as far as your question, it really depends on what we know. We need a middle school. We know we need an LP Waters for the safety of those children. Does it benefit all children in the district? It doesn't need to benefit all the children in the district. It is an overall community burden of helping our public schools continue running. And we cannot put any child at harm in a building whose foundation is crumbling. So however it might not benefit a senior going to the high school, it does benefit children in our district that we're tasked to take care of and provide an education in a secure environment. That's why we were going out for the bond for the LP Waters. And it still is right now we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to have engineers come in every year to look at that foundation to make sure it can still be inhabited on it. So there will become a time where we won't be able to do that. And we will have to do something about portables. And we'll have a portable city for little 3 and 4 year olds if we cannot pass a bond. That's what our future looks like right now if we are not able to do something about that building. So hopefully that answered both questions because, LP Waters, what I said about LP Waters, and then also the third bond consists of, we know that we want to put the middle school and LP Waters back on to the bond effort. We're going to have to discuss that as a board on whether or not that's what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. We do believe that we're not going to put it on all together. So this time around, it will be split. So if you're in favor of a middle school, you can vote for a middle school. If you're in favor of, so maybe that's Prop A, and Prop B is LP Waters. And if you want to vote for both of them, you can. Or, so it will be in the hands of the voters if that's what ends up happening and we vote on that. You're welcome. So this is, I don't know. Okay, the next person I'd like to call up is Mr. Marr.
My name is Bob Marr. Most of you know me one way or another. Our lives and families have crossed paths one way or another between our children or schools, whatever. First of all, I do support the bond. I did vote for the first one. I did vote for the second one. I still promote and will vote for the third one. I understand from Ms. Booth in a discussion with her that the last and maybe the previous bonds were defeated because the neighbors to the location of the property were not in favor of a school being built there. So my question is there a plan or a strategy developing regarding the location of a new middle school, since this discussion is focused on a new middle school, which is desperately needed. I went to high school as well as Mike. We both went to high school in this building, both graduated from this building, and when I retired from Texas Instruments, I was asked to come here and teach math, which I thoroughly enjoy. I've become addicted to it. But I feel bad for the families and the students who have to deal with a facility that cannot meet the expectations of the community. And so for unselfish reasons, I hope that a new bond election is called for, and it does focus on the middle school, and hopefully is passed. Because everyone here, I think, understands the need. So I'm not going to preach to the choir here because we know what the choir already thinks. Nevertheless, I hope that is my question about property and expense of that property and location of that property for a new middle school.
Thank you. To answer your question about the location of the middle school, we do have some land, other land. The biggest property over by Lamar is where we believe we will move the new location of the middle school. It's big enough for it. It is going to require, if we were to go out for a bond effort, it is going to require more engineering because at this time we have engineering for the old piece of property. And therefore we'll have to go back and have it engineered, and that will be more money, so it will add to the expense. However, we believe that more people will be for that location because it's not right smack dab in the middle of a neighborhood. So we do not have an intention to put it back where it was going to be. Does that answer it? Thanks. The next person I'd like to call is Mr. William Stewart.
Good evening. Thank you for having me this evening. I'm speaking on behalf of, as an employee and also as a proud graduate of Greenville High School in 1989. I think as all of us, we look back and we have visual memories of what our schools look like. And I went to all these schools in Greenville. And as I came back to work here, I came back as soon as I could. As I walk through the schools, I see that the schools aren't what they used to be, and they're in bad need of repair. And as the high school principal, I looked at that school, and I know there's many schools in this district that are much older than the high school, but just walking through the high school, it's in desperate need of repair in certain areas. And so I think I came back because I love this community, and I know we have the greatest kids in the world. And so with all the new districts around here that are growing and building new schools and all that, our kids deserve as good, or if not better, than what all these districts have. So without that, if we're spending all of our money trying to repair buildings that are older and need to be replaced, then even of our new buildings and the ones that are newer, they're getting neglected because we're spending all of our money trying to keep up with the old ones. So we're in desperate need of help, and I will be moving back to Greenville, and my tax dollars will be going towards the bond. So by all means, I'm all for it. And I don't have any kids going, but our kids, like I said, they deserve everything that all the other kids in the districts surrounding here have. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call Nancy Anderson.
So I'm here as an employee who was asked to respond to the question, should GISD call for a bond? The 72-year-old LP Waters building and age-inappropriate bathrooms facilities says yes. The 72-year-old crowded middle school building says yes. The growing population of Greenville, which we all just saw, says yes. The need to hire and retain qualified teachers says yes. The continued rise in costs says yes. The option of pouring money into creating portable villages says yes. The safety and security of students and staff says yes. The motto of doing what is best for our Greenville students says yes. It is time for our community to say yes to our students, their future and our future. Will yes be easy and come at no cost? Of course not. Few things worthwhile do. Will it be popular with everyone? Of course not. Being a student today is hard. Being a parent today is hard. Being a teacher today is hard. Being a school administrator is hard. Passing a bond has been hard. Yet it is, as our community, we owe it to our students of today and tomorrow to do the hard work that has to be done. We must move forward. The needs are not going away, only growing. The costs are not going down, only rising. We must communicate that passing a bond really isn't an option. It is a necessity that has to happen now. So should GISD call for a bond? I believe the data says yes.
Thank you. Mr. Carter?
Good evening, board and community. Thank y'all for letting me speak tonight. I am the principal of the Greenville Middle School, and we're happy to have y'all all here. The custodial staff did a great job of making sure our auditorium was ready and everything like that. So I want to give them a real quick round of applause because they deserve that. I'm for a bond, that's easy to say, being the principal here because I see every day. So I'm just going to give y'all a couple of scenarios of what I deal with every single day. It begins to rain outside, and I have kids that have to go from the main part of the building all the way out to the annex. And I'm stuck with the decision on, is it raining bad enough for us to have classes in the auditorium where they are not in the best environment for learning, or do I let them go to their class and maybe one of them falls or slips or hurts themselves? I have to make that decision as a principal. In the cafeteria, we're discussing, we have 4 lunches right now, which causes our last group of kids to eat at 1:30. Do I stay with that, or do I try to have 2 places for kids to eat and go down to 3 lunches so our kids can actually eat at an appropriate time? When it comes, I want teachers want the ability to have small group instruction and stations. However, when we look at their classrooms, they're not big enough for our students to have that type of instruction and learning going on. We desperately need a new middle school. This staff, like Dr. Mark who spoke earlier, and Ms. Anderson who's been here, and others, and Bethany who's in the crowd, they deserve a new middle school as well. It's extremely hard making these decisions every single day to choose between safety and learning and the things that honestly most principals don't have to choose to because the building is adequate for the students of their size. So I had a bunch of notes here, and I just wanted to speak from the heart because I need you guys to understand I'm not born and raised in Greenville. I've been out here 5 years. I'm from Dallas, okay? But I absolutely love this community, and I've given my all to this community, and especially this building. However, it's time for this building to retire and get to a new one because our kids deserve to be in a learning environment that's beneficial to them now and their futures. Thank you.
Thank you. I call Ryan Dudar.
Thank you, Board. Thank you, Superintendent, for having the opportunity to get to speak to you tonight.
I'm sorry, I can barely hear.
Sorry, is that better?
Yes.
Sorry about that. My name is Ryan Dudark. I, unlike most of you, did not grow up here. My wife did. Many of you know my wife, Megan Dudark. She's the reigning elementary school teacher of the year. I'll put that plug in for her because she won't do it. She's a 3rd grade teacher at Lamar Elementary. We have 3 children, a rising 5th grader, 2nd grader, and kindergartner. And I grew up in Central Texas, in Coppers Cove, Texas. It is a military town. Right in the shadow of Fort Hood. The community that I grew up in was transient, to say the least. I was a 1st grader when Desert Storm started, and many were in and out of that area. I went to an elementary school that I would probably equate closest to Crockett, a little bit older, a little bit smaller, and woefully inadequate of a facility. And I spent my 3rd and 4th grade years in portable buildings, and it was distracting. It was cold in the winter. On a day like today, it would have been miserably hot in that room, and it was very difficult to learn it. And I speak specifically about an experience from a student's perspective as to how this might go down. And when I was in the 5th grade, our community, full of people who had not even necessarily any ties or long-term interest in the community, stepped up to the plate and they voted for a new junior high school. Our junior high school served 7th and 8th grade at that time, and my mother and grandmother and many of my family had grown up there for a long time. My mother went to high school in this facility, the one junior high school that served 10 different elementary schools. Woefully inadequate, not big enough. The band hall was not big enough. The cafeteria was very much like this facility where you did not have enough space for everyone, and you had people in the halls and in the auditorium eating lunch. Not good learning environment. And our little community stepped up to the plate and made it such that we had a new facility. Was it flashy? No. Was it new? Was it able to serve us in the way that it needed to? Yes. It was built with future growth in mind. The Fort Hood area is a lot like here, where there's a lot of growth happening and people moving into the community. And so I just encourage y'all, and I encourage everybody behind me to think seriously about the future generations that are coming. It certainly is no fun to pay additional taxes for anything. We're all stretched thin. We all have many things that we have to deal with. But our future depends on the facilities a lot more than people say that they do. As a 7th and 8th grader, I remember walking into our new junior high school for the first time and thinking it was a great thing to have that. So thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to call Bethany Eskridge.
Board members, Ms. Booth, it's very nice to meet you today, see you today. I'd just like to, I'm an employee here, I'm an interpreter, I work with our deaf and hard of hearing students, and we currently work in a portable, which we love, but a big problem with having a lot of students have their classes in the portables is that they are open to any outside threat every time they leave the compound, sorry, not compound, the main building to go to the portable classrooms. And as somebody who, so that's my greatest concern whenever we talk about having a lot of portables is how are we going to keep our students safe during class changes. I went and counted every time our students are going to be outside or going to the cafeteria, which is also an adjacent building, or leaving the school entirely, and it comes to 11 times, 11 opportunities where the doors are unlocked and the students are in crowds outside where anybody could come up and do whatever they want. We do everything we can to keep tragic events from happening, but if we are able to do more in keeping an fully inside design of a campus, like the one that was proposed for the new middle school, would go a long ways to add to the safety of our students. And as somebody who did not grow up in the public school, I can speak to those in the community who might not have students in the classrooms, and they wonder why should we put tax money towards something that does not benefit us specifically, but whenever something terrible happens to a town, it affects everybody. And if we are able to do something to keep that from happening to even a small handful of the children in Greenville, that will benefit the rest of Greenville. But I really appreciate y'all's support and your receptiveness, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. At this time, I'd like to call Mrs. Park.
My name is Helen Park. I've been a parent and an employee of Greenville Schools. So I just wanted to say, we've been at the same stage, it seems like, for quite some time. Yes, no, maybe so. But what we need to do is get down to the nuts and bolts. At one of the 7 o'clock meetings that we had, I think it was an architect that was there giving some information. Excuse me. But if we could get a contractor and some actual floor plans that could be real, usable, things that people could identify with, the nuts and bolts of it all, I think that that would be more what people are looking for instead of just, do you want it? Oh, maybe, maybe not. Okay, so I just hope that we could find somebody that could be the contractor. I think on the last bond, there was a big question about some of the goings-on on what was happening when they built Bowie School and other things that they used that money for. So if they had a contractor who they could trust and who would be a liaison with the board. Now I know that not one, as far as I've seen and heard, not one member of the board, but possibly members of our community are contractors. So they could build a school. They could also use previous plans that were used in other schools. This was also brought up at one of those early morning meetings. So I would just like to say, could we think ahead and go a little bit further? Now the reason I mentioned the other things is there's a saying that says, don't look back except to learn from it. So there were a lot of mistakes made, not necessarily by any one person or any group of people, but could we just get it going with some positive, concrete things that people can identify with? Thank you.
Thank you. You didn't have specific questions, but I am going to answer a couple of things. Okay. You're asked for the floor plans. We did pay for architectural plans to be created. They were created, and so we do have a floor plan now. Those would be able to be viewed by the public. We also have discussed in length an oversight committee that would be made of community members, specifically those in different fields, one being construction. We cannot choose the person completing the construction because it has to go out for bid, but we can choose someone from our community that is in construction as an oversight to make sure that when an invoice is submitted for construction, that we have someone checking the box, checking the work that it has been completed. So that is something that came out of the last two failed bond efforts, and we did take that to heart, and that is our plan if we were to go again for another one.
Well, thank you for that information, because all I saw were the glossy pictures of possible school drawings, but people really want to know, you say this is going to house this many students. Well, where's the rooms? How are they arranged? And are we going for top dollar? Like I heard said, doesn't have to be the most beautiful school. We don't want just a couple of boards and nails put together. But we do want to be, what was it called, with our money. We want to be
fiscally responsible.
Yeah, fiscally responsible. Thank you, Bonnie. For our district and for our city, too. So thank you so much.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call Cheryl Dennis.
Good evening. I play kind of sort of like a dual role. I am an employee of the district. I'm also the elementary principal at Crockett STEM, but I'm also a parent. I have a daughter here at the middle school this year. She went to 7th grade, and she will be here again this following year for 8th grade. A couple of things that I just wanted to say is that I believe that our buildings are just one very important way that we drive education here in Greenville. We also want to take pride. Greenville has a large pride. The community has a large pride. I'm not from Greenville, but I have only educated students here in Greenville ISD. I've been grown in Greenville ISD, and I'm very passionate that the students are worthy of the best of all of us. And I am thankful for you guys giving your time and your efforts here on the board. And I want to support you as a citizen here in Greenville ISD. I want our community to support the bond here in GISD, which begs the question of why has it not been supported before? I know that if you dig deep, there's lots of information that has been housed. You've answered all the questions from the community members, and we still have not found a way to get the bond passed because our students do need the structures in place. Some things are unsafe. We're spending money in ways that we shouldn't be spending money if we just had these structures in place. We're about to have to spend money on portables at $100,000 for each portable because we don't have the building space for, about to be the middle school. And of course, all the things for LP Waters that's needed. So for me, I want to show my daughter, I want to show every single child here in GISD that I invest in them with my money. We spend money so frivolously on going to Splash Kingdom, $100 there. Several hundreds of dollars would be all it would take to show a child per year that we would want. And some people, it's not even, I think you guys found a way to do it where taxes aren't even hardly touched at all. And so to really have the answers for our citizens so that they would be knowledgeable of that, I don't know what the answer is, but I do think it is approaching those new people that are moving into Greenville that would be the next step for us. So I do support it wholeheartedly.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to call Ms. Melissa Yost.
Good evening. My name is Melissa Yost, and I am serving two purposes here tonight. I am the principal at LP Waters, but I'm also a parent. LP Waters, I'm not going to berate the bathrooms or the size of the campus or the fact that it's falling apart around us. However, I do want to address something that I don't think many of our community members understand, is LP Waters is funded both federally and state. We have eligibility requirements for our campus. We do not have the capacity to accept anyone outside of those eligibility requirements. We currently, last year we had 420 students. We have 0 open classrooms this year. How does that play tonight? The way that that plays tonight is if we enroll any other students that are eligible, we can't say no. If they're eligible for state pre-K, we have to enroll them. Therefore, we may have to kick more people out of their offices and have 3, 4, and 5 people in an office, which our buildings are for kids, not for adults. So I just want to make sure that people understand that our enrollment is, we will be at capacity. We have no more rooms for kids. We just have to make more moves. We are getting portable bathrooms that our students will have to walk outside to utilize. That is a problem for 3- and 4-year-olds. Like I said, I won't berate that. I am wholeheartedly in favor of the bond. I think for me, our 3- and 4-year-olds deserve it. They're in cramped classrooms. They're in classrooms that the carpet has been there for probably 73 years and God knows what's underneath it. We can't replace the carpet because we don't know what's underneath it. A safe, clean, up-to-date environment, I think, would really be important for our littlest lions. So I'm in favor of the bond, and I appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This time I'd like to call Mr. John Kelso.
John Kelso, 6005 Horn Drive. Thank you, board and superintendent, for the opportunity for the public to speak at a board meeting. Appreciate that. My biggest concern has been, from what I've read in the paper, it felt like the sole focus of the board was for a middle school, and it was the only focus, it seemed like, from what I've read. So I wanted to talk about LP Waters. As a member of the Citizen Committee from 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever it was, what I remember was LP Waters was the #1 concern for replacement. If I'm misremembering it, maybe it was the second concern, but I know it was in the top 2. So be sure, please, and include LP Waters in a bond. How can you do that? Maybe having multiple propositions like you've discussed would be a good way to do that. Another way, a lot of boards statewide, sometimes they'll have massive bonds and they'll say, okay, we're going to spend $100 million this year to replace this facility. 2 years from now, we're going to spend $70 million to do this facility. 3 more years down the road, we're going to do this one, and they do it all in one. Now, that may not work in Greenville, Texas, where people don't want to give you one more penny till you prove what you did with the 2 pennies I gave you 5 years ago. And I'm not going to give you another penny next year until I see what you did with the penny I gave you last year. So that may not be a way to go. But maybe you could, whenever you do have a bond, however small or large it is, be sure and tell the public, okay, we're going to have another one in 3 years because we've got this other facility that needs to be fixed. And then in 5 years, we're going to have another one because we've got this facility. Give them the whole plan up front. Maybe not vote on the whole plan up front, but give them the whole plan up front. And please include LP Waters. It's as much needed as a middle school. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call Shelley Corrales.
Hi, I'm Shelley Corrales, the President and CEO of the Greenville Chamber of Commerce, and so I'm here to represent businesses here in this town. I am for the bond. I voted for the last 2 bonds. I am wanting, so this town is growing. No one can stop it. We want to be proud of this town. I'm for businesses, so businesses and industries are coming here, and one of the things they do is the first time they come here, they want to tour the city. I want to be proud of the city. Our schools, they are embarrassing. They are embarrassing. LP Waters Middle School, it's embarrassing. We want to be proud of the schools. We want them to look good. We want to entice the businesses and industries to come here, and we need new schools. So I'm for the bond, definitely. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone at this time that wants to turn in a card that did not get to turn in a card? Because I have 1 card left. And this one was a lady that was going to be in attendance tonight, but she, something happened to her legs. She was not able to attend. And so Mr. Roger Livingston is going to read her statement. It would be from Betty Monday, and her address is 3414 Marshall Street in Greenville, Texas.
And she says, "Sorry that I am missing this much needed session tonight, but for health reasons, it is necessary. It also necessary that we take our kids' best interests to heart. This proposed bond is needed to ensure the essential and much needed education of our future. Yours, our kids, need safe and secure learning environments where they feel safe and secure. Portables, in my opinion, are not buildings where the kids should be housed. What happened to common sense? If you take the education of the kids seriously and you say you want the best there is for them, then consider the bond and take action. If you have questions, then ask. If you have concern, then express them in this meeting where you will have clarity. Don't talk outside. This is your time and this is the place. Thank you."
One thing, since our cards are done, one thing I guess I would just want to say to anyone here is that during the time that we went through the last 2 bond efforts, our board has learned a lot about what our district community members think about what has happened in the past. Those were some of our roadblocks. Things, the way we phrased things in the community, the transparency they felt that we didn't have. All these things we have looked at, we've talked about in an extensive way, And if we were to go out for a bond again, it will look different. There will be more information. I think that there is a tendency to hold back financial information about how taxes work, how things are calculated, how we receive money, because it's really complicated. But what we've learned is that we need to just put that information out there. There is going to be questions, things that we will have to answer, but we are prepared to answer all questions when it comes to the financial part of this piece. We will answer questions, which we have already done many times, about the last bond and where did that money go. We have, and Mrs. Booth has opened her office to anyone who wanted to see the paperwork, invoices, things of that nature. We put out the audit so everybody else could read it. We've done our best for the people that are sitting on this board. We have done our best to backtrack in a time that we were not here to provide the most transparency to our community members. When we sit up here all after the last bond, mostly besides Mrs. Ann Haynes, we are trying to do something for our kids now. We have to do something for them now. That is why we went out for the bond effort to begin with. Not because of trying to get over on our community. We're not trying to raise taxes because we believe that we need more money. We need buildings. We need safe buildings. We need to be able to, it's not for them to look pretty. We're not trying to be building the Taj Mahal like I heard a million times last time. We are building a building to educate children only. That is our only goal. So, we have a lot to discuss. We're gonna go back. We have been emailed. We asked our teachers to email us and our staff to let us know what they felt about the bond so we can get their opinions. As well as just an overall, if you haven't talked today and you haven't felt comfortable, you can email the board. Email us directly. We want to hear everyone's opinion, even if you don't like to get up in front of people and speak. We still want to hear negative, positive. We want to hear whether or not the yeses are bigger than the nos, because it is going to impact how we go into this next bond effort if it is voted on. So what you can expect from us right now is we're going to go back with all this information and we're going to have a discussion about whether or not we should go out. We have to make a decision. If it's going to be in November, we would have to make a decision by August. If it's beyond that, then we have more time. So I appreciate you guys from the bottom of my heart for coming here and being honest and talking. I have an open, if you ever wanted to talk to me, I have met with many community members to discuss things, and we started this coffee talk the Saturday after our big meetings. So like it typically would be this Saturday. Unfortunately, we have training this week, so it won't be this Saturday, but every meeting that we have that's a scheduled regular board meeting, we have a coffee talk so that all the community is invited to come in, have a cup of coffee, have a pastry, and ask a question that is burning in their mind about what's going on in our district. At those meetings, we have been very honest. And I encourage you, if you feel like you want to ask questions in a more intimate setting, that would be one place to come to. Again, I thank you all for coming. We're going to move on to the other parts of our meeting. You're welcome to stay, or if you would like to go, that's okay too. But I just want you to know it meant a lot to all of us that you guys were here. So thank you.
I just want to say thank you all too, not just the ones that spoke, but the ones that took time to send us emails and to really share how you feel about us moving forward. I appreciate everyone's input.
Okay. At this time, we are at the part of our meeting where it would be normal open comment, blue cards. Because of the way that I held this meeting, if there is anyone that wants to speak on agenda items not relating to the bond, but anything else, I will take those cards right now if you have anything about the agenda. Okay. All right, then we are going to move to comments from individual board members. Does anyone have anything?
Well, I think I already said my piece.
No? Okay, I don't know if you guys remember that I had this book ordered for all of us. Okay, so I want to do a book study with everyone. I know that I'm asking you to read the book, and then I would like to do this workbook. So would you be open to that? And could we set on a couple of chapters? Would that be something that everybody would do, or do you want to read the whole book and then just do it on your own?
I read it cover to cover, and I would read it again. And there's some sections that I read the takeouts over and over again, and I think that it's very valid data. It will help us in our world of governance. It will help us with goals. It will help us with being fiscally responsible. I think that anything that we can do to grow with that knowledge, it will better serve our students.
I think it would be, I have not read the entire book, but I think it would be an excellent idea for us to just get together and not in a meeting. You know what I'm talking about?
Will you turn your mic on?
Oh, great. I don't have to turn the microphone off, but really not in a formal meeting, but hey, because I know if we get all of us together, it has to be a formal meeting. But we can do things and make sure that we share, and it's part of what I believe after all these years on this board, sharing your information with everybody else that's here. And I find that this board does that better than anything I can have. We can move on from there. Am I making any kind of sense?
Yes.
Okay.
I know it's hard, to carve out the time. I mean, I know that specifically to read this and then also do the workbook attached, but I'm definitely going to be doing this with Angie as a new board member, and I would like us all to do it together. And that way, if we did some portion of it over the next couple of months, we could take this part of the meeting and discuss it if there is any discussion about it. Would you be okay with that? Okay.
I'm sorry, okay with what? I'm busy.
I said read a couple.
I'm trying to turn off my light over here.
Okay, so there's several chapters. There's 8. So if we were to do 3 chapters every month for the next 3 months, and discuss and follow along with the workbook, and then discuss it at this part of our meeting, any interesting things that you found or learned or took away from the material we read, I think that by December we'll have this all completed and we'll be much better for that. Okay? Thank you. That's all I have for that. Okay. Now we're going to move into reports and discussion items. The first being school leadership and school support, or student support, sorry.
Check. Sounds good.
Yes.
President Cruz, Superintendent Booth, Board of Trustees. Tonight I'm going to be presenting the discipline report. We'll look at the data. We'll discuss our takeaways from that data and then planning as we're moving forward and launching into the next school year. Our first slide that you see is our infractions by over a 5-year span, going back to 2018, 2019, all the way to 22, 23. We do see that we had an increase from the previous year. That represented about a little over 450, 470 infraction increase from the previous year. That trend kind of, you start to see that upswing from 2021 going into 2022 and into 2023. Not where we want to be, so that's why we want to talk about kind of those next steps and where we're going next. The second slide that you see there is our data by campus. You'll see that we had some increases in some, kind of holding steady, marginal increases, and a few decreases in there. You will notice there that the largest increase was at Greenville High School, and that was by a pretty big margin is there as well. As we take a look at the data by grade level, we did this by our secondary grade levels, we do see an overall trend line down, but there is an outlier there. The 9th grade at GHS definitely was the outlier there with the most infractions or offenses of any of the secondary grade levels. As we saw an increase on the first slide, that also translated when we break that apart by race. We have white, African American, and Hispanic. What we do see is that increase did translate across all areas when we broke that apart, and that did pretty stick. That ratio, that trend that you kind of see from year to year, kind of remain the same, but the increases did occur. This next slide represents the student infractions by the population. What you see is the green bar represents the population of each particular campus. The blue line represents the number of students that committed infractions that were part of the general education population, and then the red line represents the number of students that committed infractions that were members of the special education population. What you see overall is generally that's a low level of the number of students overall, especially with in respect to our elementary campuses. You do see that climb a little bit in our secondary campuses. Our top offenses, as we take a look at that, you can see here are our general code of conduct violations. These are generally coded in PEEMS. It's a catch-all, which can be really found on pages 6 through 9 of our student code of conduct. The biggest infractions that we saw were inappropriate conduct in the classroom or disruptive behavior. We also saw bus infractions were included in that as well, especially as we got into the second semester. The next one was our fightings or altercations. That was a trend that was definitely up this year, something that we want to continue to address for sure. And then tobacco was the next one. When I say tobacco, I don't mean tobacco in the traditional sense. What we're really talking about is our vape pens or electronic cigarettes. We definitely saw an increase across the board with students having those kinds of items. And then the last one was possession of a controlled substance. And again, a lot of those were related back to vape pens as well. It's getting harder and harder to tell kind of what's in those cartridges when a student brings those. We'll discuss that a little bit later. Our out-of-class placements, again, as we saw the increase, are represented by our placements in DAP, or what we call GAP, our out-of-school suspensions, in-school suspensions, and our partial day in-school suspensions. We saw an increase really in our in-school suspensions a lot there. With the increases overall, we did see increases in all categories there as well. And then our last data slide is about our special education out-of-class placements. We saw that slide back about 4 slides ago where we looked at the overall population. That line across the bottom, the red line, was pretty low. But when we take a look at it in the number of placements, it represents a low number, but it was an increase as well. Wow. I'm not real sure where to point this thing. Maybe Shannon's doing that. There it goes. Go back one, Shannon. Perfect. So as we take a look at the takeaways and we looked at that data, going back to that second slide, we definitely did see the largest increase at Greenville High School for sure. That was where we saw the biggest increase there. But we did see some increases there at Bowie and Travis as well. Special education out-of-class placements accounted for approximately 26% of the overall placements. When we really started to drill into the data, we started looking at students with multiple referrals across all the campuses. What we noted was about 6% of our students are accounting for about 64% of our referrals. So a very small percentage do account for a great majority of our referrals across the board. And that data that we looked at where we saw the ninth graders really kind of stand out from all the rest of those grades, that accounted for approximately 48% of the GHS referrals from ninth grade. So I know that's something that Dr. Stewart is already keenly aware of and is working to address as well. So as we kind of go back and we start to look at, can you go back right there? As we start to take a look at how we're launching forward and how we're going forward into the next school year, we're starting with our progressive discipline. We're taking a look at what are the steps that we're currently taking, how are we increasing those over time. So we're looking at really implementing this progressive discipline, starting with the least severe method that we can to stop the behavior that we think is going to correct the situation, and then increasing the severity over time. So we're taking a look at what that looks like across the board and how that relates to our student code of conduct, so that we can apply that to all of our campuses as well. The next step, we're doing discipline planning with Region 10. In fact, we held our first session with Region 10 last Wednesday with our principals and assistant principals. As we're planning for the 23-24 school year, we're looking to align our practices and procedures. So we've really started that process, kind of digging into what are common practices, how do we make sure that we keep it consistent across the board, and then planning for our launch with our teachers. How do we launch with our teachers? What are those common procedures? What are those common things that all teachers across the district need to know? And then how are we planning for our launch with students, that how-to, that first day of school and then that first week of school, relating back to those processes and procedures and the overall discipline across the campus as well, making sure that our teachers are prepared, making sure that our students understand the expectations is critical. So we'll continue to do that throughout the year with our bi-weekly meetings and huddles with principals to review those processes and to check in on our progress to make sure that we are accomplishing the things that we want to accomplish. Again, we mentioned earlier about the progressive discipline. We're reviewing that in relation to our student code of conduct, reviewing our offenses, reviewing our consequences. One thing that we really want to work on this year is making sure that in addition to the code of conduct, that we're continuing to teach those appropriate behaviors in addition to the consequences. We talked a little bit earlier about the number of vape-related items that we saw throughout the year. That was an increase. One thing that we are going to do next year is gap placements, or those DAEP placements for our vapes and electronic cigarettes. As mentioned earlier, it's becoming increasingly difficult to identify the substances that are in those cartridges that come in those electronic cigarettes. The good news is this was recently backed up by the state legislature and the governor. I believe very recently a bill was signed, House Bill 114 was signed very recently, which addresses this very thing, which mandates a gap placement for these offenses. And then the other thing, as we saw those riots and fights across the board, making sure that we address that consistently as well, and looking at gap placements for fights that have disrupted that school environment. Another thing that we are doing is working on a parent-student compact, parent-student campus compact, I should say, which really kind of outlines the roles and responsibilities of each one of those members. What is the role of parents? What are the roles of students? And what are the roles of the campus in relation to the educational process? One of the things that our campuses have done is provided us with 3 names of parents or families that might be interested in working with us on this project. So on June 28th, we are inviting these families in, these family members, to come in and work with campus administration and district administration to flesh out those roles and responsibilities and to have that compact. One thing that we will do is present this to families on Meet the Teacher nights, but it also is going to be a part of our registration process, which will open on July the 17th. So parents will have a couple of different ways to see this. We're also looking at updating our cell phone policy as it relates to grades 5 through 12. Students will turn in their phone to the teacher at the beginning of the class. Teachers are going to have some tubs which they can store this in. Kids can get that back at the end of class because we know that cell phones can be a distraction in the classroom. If kids are looking at text or they're looking at social media or anything else along those lines. We know that that can continue to be a distraction and disrupt the educational process. So we're looking to remove that distraction going into the next school year. Consequences would include confiscation of the phone, fine of $15, and school suspension, and that would be progressive over time. So your first offense might start off with the confiscation and then $15 fine and confiscation, and then maybe for that next offense going to that in-school suspension as well. We're looking to start this communication to formally to parents in July and make this also a part of our registration packet. So when parents are going through that online registration part of that, this will be included in that, as well as communication to the communication department about this upcoming change in policy. So we've been working with our secondary principals on this, getting them ready, reviewing the policy, making sure that we have a good launch for that as well. The next part are graduated sanctions going into next year. This allows a district PD or police department to file for certain Class C misdemeanors with a local court. However, it's not just a file first type of deal. You know, there are ways that we want to make sure that we continue to work with students and families throughout this particular process, starting off with a warning letter to parent, working on behavior contracts that both the parent and student would sign, and then also working with our police officers to offer a restorative justice program. Chief Rodriguez and his team have been working on this particular piece of this. So for example, if we have something happened with a teacher that a teacher didn't feel comfortable filing a complaint against a student or something else, something along those lines, then our PD could also step in and continue to do that. Offering of school-based community service and a referral to counseling. And if a student didn't live up to the expectations of this particular graduated sanction plan, then the PD could go ahead and file for that Class C misdemeanor. This would also be done in conjunction with what's already prescribed by the Student Code of Conduct. So it's not a standalone, it is done in conjunction with anything else that's already outlined there. And then last is restructuring our in-school suspension. Making sure that we are incorporating those behavior-based lessons incorporated into the ISS placement. We talked a little bit about that earlier on in the presentation. One more place where we can continue to do that is in our in-school suspension, making sure that we are addressing behaviors both with the consequence side, but also with the behavior piece of that. To make that successful, we know that we're going to need to try to train our ISS aides and teachers so that they know how to implement that. And as we develop that and get that ready to roll out, making sure that they are ready for that. Also with our ISS kids, just simply making sure that their phones are taken up, making sure that that's not a distraction in the ISS classroom. We know that if it can be a distraction in the regular classroom, it can certainly be a distraction in another setting like that. Also working with our ISS teachers and aides to make sure that we continue to teach lessons in ISS, making sure that they're prepared to deliver content and make sure that that work is complete. And then also working on our transition plans back from either an ISS placement or a DAEP placement, a GAP placement, with a transition plan to help students be more successful. So we've already started that particular process of working on what those plans look like and are getting those ready to roll out as well. So overall, you know, discipline definitely, we saw a trend up, not where we want to be, but it's something that is a top priority that we want to handle going into the next school year, and we'll continue to monitor and to tackle head on. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I appreciate the due diligence that you all put behind this, breaking down the numbers, coming up with a plan.
Yes, ma'am.
Listening to what was asked of you by the board members, by the superintendent, and so I just think this is really valuable data, and I think that it is going to start off a great year with students' educations in mind and not distractions.
Any other comments? Yeah, somebody else?
My only thing was, you said you're looking at the cell phone policy, but
I'm sorry, we are doing that, yes,
Okay.
ma'am, absolutely.
Part of what has been talked about in the community, and everyone's been pulled aside at some point on the board, has been about discipline. And so it's been a continuing effort of us all to come to some kind of response to that, something to answer the need that the teachers so desperately need and administrators need at their schools. So we know how hard it is to implement anything in the middle of a year, but this is a great plan to move forward at the beginning of the year with high hopes that this will be the answer we all need. Now, when you approach Region 10, progressive discipline in itself is something that isn't really researched a lot of or like written about, but it is something that is like time and tested. It's just something that's been around for a long time. And Region 10 said that many other districts were looking at similar things, correct?
Yeah, I think Region 10 was definitely making, they've had a lot of input or inquiries, I should say, into just increases across discipline from across the board in many places. So they were seeing very much an increase on a variety of things as far as discipline is concerned, progressive, just discipline procedures in general, the whole 9 yards.
Because overall, every district is having discipline issues. And I love the parent compact that Mrs. Booth suggested, because in one of my last trainings, the presenter said, like, let's just take a school from 10 years ago, and you have a parent population, and 50% of those parents were super involved parents. You had parents that were semi-involved, and then you had parents that were not involved at all. But that pool of involved parents has dwindled down to 15 to 20%. So there's a huge amount of apathy with parents right now about the involvement in school. Even though we do have a lot of media that says, parents need to be involved in school and be a part of the plan, we do not have as much as we really need. So I love the compact with the and teachers, just because we can all be on the same page about where everything goes. So this is a great presentation. Thank you.
Okay. We have had conversations before about stricter, discipline issues for the kids, like after 3 offenses. I mean, I don't want it, the same student, we're giving them 5 chances, 6 chances. Is that in this plan, like 3 strikes, they have harder discipline? Because even last year at the high school, we had a plan in place, but look how it increased significantly, especially with the vaping and other substance abuse at the campus and so forth. How are we going to keep up with this throughout the year? We seem to only have discipline things at the end of the year. Are we going to review this, every 9 weeks or so to see where we're at on discipline? Because it all looks good on paper, but how are we going to enforce it?
So thank you for that question, Ms. Woodruff. I'm going to ask the new principal of Greenville High School to come up, because I am counting on this man to incorporate everything that, and he knows it, we talk about it daily. He is from Greenville, he knows what kids, he said it earlier, but I would like for them to hear your commitment to this cause, please, sir.
Well, welcome to the spotlight.
Well, the good thing is it shouldn't be hard to improve upon those numbers.
No, I said I wanted you to tell them your commitment to
yes, ma'am.
Incorporating this process and
consequences and consistency are definitely necessary, and I think we have some good things that have been put in place. We've done a lot of collaboration, got a lot of good information from Region 10, but consequences alone doesn't fix a discipline problem. I honestly believe that kids aren't bad by nature. I think there's a lot of causes for misbehaviors. I think one of those is not having clear expectations that have been communicated with them. And through surveys and all the stuff that I've read and researched, I think communication has been a problem at the campus level. So that's something that definitely needs to improve. I think also frustration from the student standpoint is a very big problem. Part of that frustration could be academic frustrations, and our scores kind of go along with that academic frustration. Because if I have a group of students in front of me and I ask them, how many of you want to fail your EOC test or fail this grade, they don't answer, they're not going to raise their hand. Students want to be successful. So I think it's more than just saying we have to put these consequences along with this behavior. I think we need to reach the kids where they're at We need to communicate what our expectations, be consistent with the follow-through on them, but also we need to put them in a position where they can be successful academically. And I think we have to dig deeper than just a student come to the office and you just say, this is your behavior, this is your consequence. I think we need to dig deeper. We need to look at attendance. We need to look at grades. We need to look at home life. We need to find out what's going on in that child's life. And those have all been communicated with the administrators on campus, and that's going to be absolute when a kid visits us. We're going to figure out where that behavior comes from and where the root cause is, and we're going to help address that with the student because, and I'm going to quote Theodore Roosevelt, it's on my email signature, no one cares what you know until they know that you care. And so the relationship building with our students and letting them know that we care about them as a person and not just as a student, and that we're going to take care of them academically. We're going to share their expectations. As parents, we have high expectations for our students. And I think a lot of times that we forget that our students here are capable of reaching the expectations that we set. But if we don't set those expectations high enough for them, they're never going to reach those expectations. So we're going to have the high expectations. It's going to be communicated with them, and we're going to love them, and we're going to build out consequences as needed. But even at the end of the day, the students are going to know that we love and care about them. So I hope that answers any questions you have, but
Yes, thank you.
thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Angie.
My only question is how are we going to ensure that all the teachers are doing the same thing and following through with this? I think that that's my biggest concern is like you can go from one class and the teacher's very strict and you can go to another and the kids know that they can get away with something.
Come on.
It's not just at high school.
I think he'll answer some of what we've kind of addressed as a whole.
Well, part of the training that we went through in the discipline management program was there's what they call a discipline management playbook. And I think when I go back to saying there has to be clear expectations, what I found is those expectations haven't always been written. And so we're going to develop playbooks, and I'm thinking across the district, that specifically spell out what the student's responsibility is, what the teacher's responsibility is, and what the administrator's responsibility is. And create a handbook of some sort where teachers have access to that. They can share those processes and procedures with the students. The teachers as well know those processes and procedures, and the administrators are going to go along with those. And we're going to have class meetings the first day at the high school, and the teachers that are having the kids in class while we're having class meetings are going to go over those processes and procedures, and so they know the expectations from day one.
And that's across the district. He's speaking
He's
for all
exactly right.
principals.
We're working on those playbooks from all the way down from pre-K all the way to the high school, so that we make sure that when we look at those, they're aligned across the board.
And the kids are knowing in all of their, from pre-K through graduation night, the kids know what is expected of them, and do they participate in making sure that that they're doing what they should be doing, that their discipline is part of their problem, not just yours.
Definitely. I mean, I think that's part of the whole process, making sure that they are included. We look at discipline, it's either you got consequences and you got the reinforcement side, but the part that's missing is that bridge in between, is that education side. Making sure that we make sure that, just like Dr. Stewart was saying, that everything is clear, that everything is readily accessible, so that everybody knows exactly what those expectations are.
I think one of the things that we have heard over and over in the district is, from our teachers, has been the disrespect in the classroom. So while I can understand seeing and reaching the child from where they are and connecting to them all the way back to their home life, that can't be the teacher's responsibility in the middle of class when they have to discipline a child.
Agreed.
They need to not be thinking about that as much. I mean, that definitely is on every teacher who's decided to be a teacher, cares for their children. However, in the middle of class, It can no longer be their responsibility to be solely responsible for discipline, especially when they're being cussed at or any kind of active violence is happening in the classroom. Those students have to go out of the classroom and be out of the classroom and not in a you know, cool-off room. So I'm hoping that in this discipline playbook that that's in there, because that's, you know, I think teachers have a lot of things on their shoulders, not only just taking care of their job and doing the best that they can, they also have stressors at home too. And it's a big deal. Mental health for students and teachers are a huge issue. And I just feel like the support has to be at the administration level at all the campuses to support the teachers.
Agreed.
We're good? Okay, no more questions.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So you're doing the next one too?
One more, sorry. Superintendent, President Cruz, Superintendent Booth, Board of Trustees. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the Head Start Quality Improvement Grant. You might recall we've already done the COLA, or cost of living adjustment piece of that Head Start grant. The quality improvement was also presented to us as a way to kind of make our services a little bit more robust. The grant is in the amount of $45,566, and what this allows the Head Start program to do is, straight from the funding guidance, is really apply this money to hiring an additional staff member as a family service worker or a home visitor to decrease the overall caseload and enhance that family staff relationship and improve the quality of services at the Head Start. Our service workers, family service workers, currently have a caseload of over 50 students, and Commerce and Quinlan have over a caseload of over 30 students. By adding this particular additional staff member, that allows us to reduce that caseload to the mid-30s, and so that would be greatly enhance that overall experience for the student. It enhances the overall experience for the family members as well. And so the administration requests the approval of the quality improvement grant submission for Hunt County Head Start for the 23-24 school year.
So just to clarify, this is a grant request that it will be funded through a grant, and it is ongoing if we are to receive it. So this is just, the Head Start committee has authorized it to move forward to you, the board. And so once you, if you so pleased to move forward with this grant, this will allow Head Start to submit the grant for this position.
I move that the Hunt County Director for Head Start submit the quality improvement grant for Hunt County Head Start for the 23-24 school year.
Second.
With a motion by Tish and a second by Bonnie, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you very much.
At this time, we're going to teaching and learning with the SPED update.
Good evening, President Cruz, Superintendent Booth, and members of the board. Tonight I stand before you to share the special education update for the 2022-2023 school year. So we'll start off by defining special education. Special education is specially designed instruction that addresses the unique needs of students that receive special education services. This is done at no cost to parents, and it's also inclusive of related services. Specially designed instruction is the thing that makes special education special and unique. So for the purpose of special education develops our students that are IEP entitled so that they meet their fullest academic and otherwise potential. This is done in a free and appropriate, The purpose of special education is to enable students that are IEP entitled, I don't know what is happening tonight. All right, rewind, refresh. So basically, it makes sure that we are providing our students an opportunity to develop to their fullest potential. And these guidelines are identified in the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. So, students that qualify for special education services qualify in one of the 13 areas that are identified by IDEA. And the students must demonstrate a need for specially designed instruction. So that "and" should be in all caps. So I want to take you to a couple of the trends in our special education data, and we'll start with an overview from the state of Texas perspective. Here's a snapshot of what the special education representation for the state of Texas looks like. Based on the data, and this was pulled from our Texas Academic Performance Report for the 21-22 school year, better known as the TAPER report. And that percentage was 12% for the state of Texas. So I also want to direct our attention to a comparison for Greenville ISD. So within Greenville ISD, we represent about 14% of the total student population, with that being 809 students that are special education entitled out of the 5,422 students served in the district. Here's a representation of special education by eligibility area. These are the raw numbers for that. This is representative of disabilities that are above the 1% rate. That means that the numbers won't equate to the 809. This is basically not including 5 disability areas, which is equivalent to about 14 students.
And Dr. Crooks, can we clarify that the figures that you were speaking to is from Snapshot? So it was the end of October.
Thank you so much. This is reflective of our fall snapshot data. Okay, so the numbers are very much a little bit more fluid than what we have on the screen right now. So a little bit about the special education services that are provided within Greenville ISD. We offer a full continuum of services that are for students that are IEP entitled. If you look at the graphic that is displayed here on the screen, the top of the screen are services that are most closely related to general education environment, with the bottom being the most restrictive, which here on the screen is reflective of residential services. We currently and in the past few years have not had any students in residential services or entitled to those services. However, we do have students that receive hospital homebound services. A little bit about the program descriptions. So we offer speech therapy for students that are experiencing communication and language difficulties. Most of our students within the district are included in our inclusion support or inclusion services. These are specialized services that are provided within the general ed setting for these students. Again, we have students that receive homebound services. These are students that are medically in need and cannot attend school, so we provide the services and supports within the home environment. We also provide services to our students that are in our early childhood special education program. These are students that are ages 3 through 5 who need additional support integrating in the general environment. We have Structured Teach, which primarily services students that are on the autism spectrum, and this provides the needed support and structure for these students, and it also provides them an opportunity to have their sensory and language needs addressed. Our Life Skills program services students that are moderate to severely intellectually disabled, making sure that they have access to curriculum that meets their multi-sensory needs in a setting that addresses those needs as well. Our Functional Academics program provides services and supports to students with moderate intellectual disabilities, and these are students who can access the TEKS on a modified level. These students also have more involved needs such as feeding and toileting needs. We offer a life choice program that provides services and supports to students that have significant behavioral challenges. This allows social skills instruction and other needs to be met within this environment. Greenville ISD is also the home of the Regional Day School Program for the Deaf. And in this program, we provide specialized services and supports for students that are experiencing hearing loss and deafness. So a little bit about where these programs are located throughout the district. And you'll see here a representation of that based on the different programs that I just kind of described. If you notice the campuses that are in blue and bold, these campuses represent either a relocation, an addition, or a startup for the 2023-2024 school year. Most recently, special education was granted 6 positions, so this is also reflective of where those teacher positions will be allocated. So a little bit about accountability. And I'd like to direct your attention to the results-driven accountability, which is basically a systemic approach that TEA uses to make sure that districts are providing the supports that are needed to students with disabilities. Each year we are rated through this results-driven accountability measure, and based on our most recent ratings from this past fall, our special education program was rated a DL, or designation level 3, for the indicators that are here on the screen, which is SPED star 3 through 8 passing rate, the SPED year after exiting special education star 3 through 8 passing rate, and SPED star EOC passing rate, which is inclusive of Algebra 1, Biology, English 1, and English 2. So a little bit about what these ratings mean. So here you'll see that any LEA that has a designation level of 2, 3, or 4, it essentially means that there are additional requirements that must be adhered to by that district. So there are specific monitoring activities that go beyond the annual self-assessment that all districts have to participate in. So if you look at the graphic, you'll see that a designation level of a 1 is primarily the self-assessment, and then there's a little bit of a strategic support plan. With us being designation level 3, we have the self-assessment, a strategic support plan, a targeted desk review where they randomly pull folders from within the district to make sure that they are compliant, as well as an on-site review that is conducted. So with these determination levels, a designation level of 3 is equivalent to needs intervention. And all of this is based on the RDA manual from 2022. So I'd like to direct your attention to performance levels, because in some of the data that I'm about to show you, you'll see a PL rating. So I wanted you to be aware of what this is reflective of. So SPED star 3 through 8 passing rate, you see here the chart that has the performance level assignments. Just keep in mind as we look at the data on the slides to come that the target is a PL of 0. So here you'll see a representation of the results-driven accountability for the SPED star 3 through 8 passing rate. With a PL of 0, that means that the percentages are 70 to 100 as a target for where we should be as a district. And you'll see for math, as an example, we were 36.8, right? And you see here reflected for reading, 35.4, science, 36.9, and then for social studies, 34.5. So the equivalent in trend data for the district, you'll see here for the SPED star 3 through 8 passing rate, for the 2021 school year and the 2022 school year, with the red being reflective of 2022, you'll see that our special education students did make progress, and they performed better than they did in the 2021 school year. Same thing here for SPED year after exit, STAR, 3 through 8 passing rate. Same cut scores, 70 to 100% for math, 70 to 100 for reading, 65 to 100 for science, and 65 to 100 for social studies. The 2-year trend data, here you'll see reflective of 21 and 22. There was for math a slight increase in the way that our students perform, pretty commensurate for reading. And then the science and social studies, we did not have enough students to test. Normally that cut point is about 30 students, so therefore there was no data reported for those. Same thing for STAR EOC passing rate. In Algebra 1, a 24.6, Biology 38.2, U.S. History 64.1, and English 1 and English 2 27.0. Another thing that I would like to bring your attention to is last year when I stood before you, I brought it to your attention that special education was deemed significantly disproportionate for the total amount of disciplinary removals for special education students. That being out-of-school suspension as well as expulsion or gap placements. You'll see here the 3-year trend data from 19, 20, and 21. I am pleased to report some progress this school year. The risk ratio that the state sets is 2.5. Last year when I stood before you, we were at 3.3, so significantly above the state threshold. This year we have made some improvements. We're at 2.7, but we're not off their radar, so to speak, because we still have not met the requirement of 2.5. As a result of this determination last year, being significantly disproportionate, we did have to allocate $160,000 of SPED funding to correct the discipline issue or the over suspension of special education students. So supports and initiatives to help us with the work that were conducted this school year. So strategic support. So one of the things that happened back in December is there was training on the RDA, the whole process and procedure, so that campus administrators and district level administrators understood what it took to meet the requirements or the state's threshold. There were also trainings on instructional strategies that would allow our students to have more success within the general education environment, and this training was provided to both special education and general education staff. There was also a collaboration between the special education department, campuses, and HR to make sure that we were recruiting and retaining top talent for our special education classrooms. For the significantly disproportionality portion that deals with the discipline, there was also training conducted with the state and, with the campus and district staff on RDA. There was a call before suspension protocol that was implemented, which meant that campus administrators, before they suspended a special education student out of school or to GAP, had to call the Deputy Superintendent of School Leadership and the Executive Director of Special Education. There was also a use of a discipline placement tracker, which each campus monitors the suspensions of students with disabilities to make sure that we are adhering to that threshold, those 10 free days that students are provided. Special education students with 3 or more suspensions require documented campus-based interventions and supports. So in addition to the suspensions on that tracker, campuses had to say what they're doing for each of those individual students to intervene in the discipline and behavior. For students that did not have a functional behavior assessment and behavior intervention plan, this was the time to have dialogue about whether or not one was required for that student. And for those students that had plans, it was a time to revise if needed to make sure that the behaviors were being addressed. The special education department also contracted with CAM, behavior consultants, to assist with program evaluations. All of the centralized programs were evaluated and now clear pathways for entry and exit, as well as operating procedures are written and in place, so that we have consistency across the district in the way that those programs are operated. A few of the special education initiatives that we like to highlight for this past school year. There was a parent engagement night that was held in May, and a couple of the topics that were highlighted were child time, guardianship, which we know is a huge, huge issue and concern, and there's just not enough information that we can get out fast enough about that. Transition planning and supports. We were pleased to have 5 vendors there to be able to provide resources to our families. Another special education initiative or highlight of 2 others. There was also a transition fair hosted back in March. And with that transition fair, we had 30 vendors to participate. We also established partnerships to support employability skills for our students in the transition program with Hunt County Shared Ministries and our very own Lions Lair Cafe with the chef. Special Olympics is always a highlight each year. We had 25 students in grades 9 through 12 to participate in the local area events. We had an addition of bowling added this school year. They practiced here locally in Greenville and they participated in Sherman ISD. We also had students participate in track and field in Van Alstyne ISD and Princeton ISD, and our students placed. And we had students participate in basketball events in Anna ISD and Van Alstyne ISD, and they placed in those events as well. A couple of the things that we are excited about. We have a unique learning systems, which is a curriculum for our students that are a part of our life skills, our structured teach, our FAC programs. We're really excited about that because it connects real life events to the lessons that they are participating in and learning within the classroom. So it helps them be able to engage with real life events when they're home and engaging with family and friends. Added at Bowie, Carver, and Travis Intermediate. We are opening a life choice class at Crockett Elementary. There's an addition of a life skills class at Travis Intermediate. There's an addition of a FAC at Greenville Middle School. We are expanding our 18+ services for Greenville High School, and we're super excited about providing more opportunities for our families to engage with. There's one more thing that is not listed here that is also something that we're excited about, and that is having a brand new executive director of special ed that will stand in the stands next year to provide this information to you. And that is Ms. Alpha Walker. So help me welcome Alpha to the meeting. Thank you. So that is all I have for the SPED update. Do you all have any questions for me?
Is it possible to go back to the graphic that had the difference in the 2 reporting years? It had the percentage in the graphic.
Are you
sure, this one.
Like this
so
one?
what I was wondering is, in addition to the graphic and the percentage, can you, the next time it's reported, do a year-over-year percent change, like if it's plus 5% plus 50 students, just something so kind of a snapshot of the impact. Like, this is great color. I'm just, like, I can't do the math fast enough in my brain. to figure out.
So like the
how-
difference between the 43.9 and the 26, the 24.6
Right, so
and
did
the.
we, you know, did we positively reach 15% more students that were increased learning? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yes, it does.
Okay. What's the student-teacher aid ratio right now?
It depends on the program that you're talking about. So there are ratios determined based on the significance of need in each individualized program.
What is the state ratio? How many sped kids can be with one teacher?
So the state doesn't give clear-cut guidance on that. Now, for the Region 10 region, a lot of the districts have gotten together and kind of created some guidance for that. So, for example, for an autism class may be different from a class with students with intellectual disability because of the needs.
Let's say life skill, 19 kids in class.
So I'm going to give you kind of a way that that's determined. So not a hard and fast number because it depends on so many different factors. So you said life skills. So you're talking about a life skills program, which is primarily students that have moderate to mild intellectual disabilities. In an environment like that, most of those students can operate and navigate that environment independently. So you don't have a lot of wheelchairs, you don't have a lot of toileting, you don't have a lot of feeding needs. So the more independent the students are, the slightly higher the ratios can be within those environments. If I go back to coming from another state that provided that guidance, it would be something like 10 students with one para, one teacher. And the way that they did their formula is you can add 3 students for staff. Okay. So you would be able to grow that way to make sure that your ratios of teachers and para-pros balanced out with the needs of students.
So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over. Ms. Walker, if you will, after school starts, get that percentage by class, and we'll provide that to you, okay?
Okay. I have one more question. Are you allowed to mix FAC's kids and life skill kids in the same class?
So the answer to that is special education is a service and not a location. And so we really try to avoid even labels for the program because the IEP drives the placement. So you, of course, you start to present levels of performance that's driving the goals and objectives, which drives the amount of time that they need in special ed, and then you hold that up and you determine which environment could meet that student's needs. So it depends on the needs of the students.
I just want to add one more thing, and that is that special education children have to take the same state assessment as any general ed, non-special ed student. So the bar is as high for them as it is for our general population that does not have an identified learning disability, one of those 13 disabilities. So I think we've made some really good strides. And I appreciate the efforts that were made this year.
Yes, yes, and that is so true. And to that point, that is why the RDA data was presented, because the state is monitoring the way that we are performing. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you all.
At this time, we're moving to food service and the cafeteria design.
Good evening, President Cruz, Ms. Booth, and board members. I'm here this evening to speak to you about considering the redesign for the cafeteria at middle school and high school. The increase, or the benefits of this, we are going to be able to increase the seating capacity at GMS from 266 students currently to 300. The seating capacity at the high school will remain the same. Dr. Stewart would like to have 4 lunches at GHS next year instead of the 3 that we currently have, so it will not require any additional seating. It will also provide an updated space to our students. The redesign will include an updated variety of cafeteria tables and seating, all new paint and wall wraps, artworks, and window planks. We are going to repaint everything in both of the cafeterias. We currently have no artwork up in either one of the cafeterias, so we will add artwork to both of those, and we're going to paint the inside of our serving areas. So as the kids are walking through the lines, they will have that same beautiful updated space that they have out in their cafeterias. This is just a broad overview of what we are proposing. We did a combination of tables because it utilized our space best, and we were able to increase our seating for the middle school for that, and for high school it just gave the kids a more diverse range of seating. The timeline for this project is I'm presenting to you guys this evening. Tomorrow I will submit for TDA approval upon your approval. July 24th, we begin painting both campuses. August 1st will be the completion of painting, wall wraps, window clings, and art installation. And by September, or the weekend of September 22nd, we plan on installing all new tables. This is roughly going to cost us around $600,000.
And it comes out of the child nutrition.
Yes, it's all out of child nutrition budget, none out of the general fund. Questions?
I don't have any questions. I know that our child nutrition is profit centered, and so you don't have to be afraid of saying 600,000 whenever you make the money to pay for it. Does anybody else have any questions?
Angie doesn't know about the excess funds. Should we?
So, our child nutrition department, I don't know, do we explain how we charge for lunches. And so whereas there are a lot of districts that do not make money in their child nutrition department, we actually do. And we do have an excess, and so we're spending that excess and updating the 2 cafeterias for more seating specifically for the GMS, but also just for an update at the high school and at GMS.
And we do need to keep that fund down, and it's high right now. So we need to ensure that we are putting it where our revenue is coming from. So that's really the bottom line. So at this point, this will allow us to get into levels that is more within compliance of our balance and child nutrition budget. So that's the objective here.
We're getting closer, yes.
Yeah, closer. I didn't say closer.
With the GMS, how many lunches will that be?
3. Our goal is to make it 3. I apologize.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
Okay.
3 lunches.
Currently, we have 4 just because the seating capacity does not allow for us to only serve 3 lunches. Our max capacity right now is 266, and there's no way that we can fit all of them in there at one time. So.
And you have approved that through the fire marshal, so we are able to, with the table additions, we're able to increase the capacity and still stay within guidelines.
Yes.
Is there any problem that TDA could hold up the approvals?
I'd like to say no, but TDA is a funny character from time to time. I will submit that they're typically pretty fast. They range in approval anywhere from 3 to 10 days. So it's typically pretty fast.
The reason I asked the question is your schedule is pretty tight.
It is.
So, I mean, you only got 8 days to paint and do up the graphics and everything like this. That's quick.
Yeah, I think that Cherie has done a good job at researching the pros and cons of getting something submitted and approved. So I think we've covered our bases, and we're optimistic that it will go through pretty quickly.
Fingers crossed.
Yes,
Is
sir.
September 22nd due to getting the tables?
Yes, ma'am.
It's an ordering thing. It takes a minute.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Roughly 10 weeks from the time we place the order. Yes, ma'am.
All All right, if there isn't any other discussion, can I get a motion?
I move that the board approve the interlocal purchasing agreement of over $50,000 to redesign the GMS and GHS cafeterias as presented.
Second.
With a motion by Mike and a second by Bonnie, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Can't wait to see it.
I know, I'm excited. Thank you.
President Cruz, members of the board, the next one is a specified donation as identified under a local policy CDC. The Hunt County Tunes for Tots would like to donate $1,000. They did this a couple of years ago, and those funds went to Special Olympics. So this year, again, they would like to donate $1,000. It will go to Special Olympics. We need a banner in which to walk into the arena on, or the event, and to put that up on the fence. So this $1,000 will go toward that banner.
Is there any discussion? If not, can I get a motion?
I move to approve the acceptance of the donation from Hunt County Tunes for Tots in the amount of $1,000 for the GISD Special Education Department.
I'll second.
The motion by Bonnie and a second by Roger. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, our next request do have to be done separately, but as you know, 2 weeks ago, we had the fortune to hire a CFO, and Coy Martin is now with us, and we have to approve for him to be added to all the transaction portals for the financial accounts. So I need a motion for that to go forward.
Okay, so are we, okay, so we're going to do one at a time. And we're going to come back to the TASB board position.
Sorry, I skipped this?
Yes.
Okay, go back to that.
We have to consider approval of TASB board position, Regionton denominations. Do we have that nomination?
I'd like to nominate Roger.
Okay.
Roger,
Yeah,
is that okay with you?
it's okay with me.
Any other nominations?
No, but I'll second the nomination.
Okay. With a motion by Tish and a second by Mike, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Okay, now we can move to Coy Martin. So consider approval to add new CFO Coy Martin to the Texas Class Transaction Portal and Financial Accounts. Is there any discussion? Can I get a motion?
I move that the Board of Trustees approve a motion to add Coy Martin to the Texas Class Transaction Portal and Financial Accounts.
Second.
With a motion by Roger and a second by Bonnie, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Now we're at consider approval of adding new CFO Coy Martin to have access to all online financial accounts, as well as to authorize access to all GISD financial accounts. If there's not any discussion, can I get a motion?
I move that the Board of Trustees approve a motion for CFO Coy Martin access to all online financial accounts, as well as the authorization access to all GSD financial accounts.
I'll second.
With a motion by Angie and a second by Tish, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Consider approval of adding new CFO Coy Martin to check signature and purchase order. What is that? Purchase order? Purchase orders, okay.
I move that the Board of Trustees approve a motion for CFO Coy Martin to be added to check signature and purchase order.
I second.
With a motion by Bonnie and a second by Angie, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Now we move to consider approval to auction surplus vehicles.
So, based on policy CI, the board has asked us through policy if we are to sell any of our purchased items anything over $5,000 does have to go to the board. We have several buses and 2 to 3 white fleets that are over at TxDOT right now that we would like to take to auction, but we need your approval. We're not sure if it'll maximize over $5,000, but we wanted to make sure that we have asked the board permission prior to contacting the auction.
Is there any discussion?
No, I move that the board approve the auction of surplus vehicles as presented.
I'll second.
A motion by Tish and a second by Roger. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. We've reached the consent agenda portion of our agenda. Is there anything that anyone would like to be removed from the consent agenda? Okay. Since there is nothing.
I'd like to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Okay.
I second.
Motion by Bonnie and a second by Tish. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Now we move to open forum and public comment for non-agenda items. Again, since this is an unusual meeting, is there anyone that is wanting to make a comment on non-agenda items at this time? Okay. All right, then we are going to move past that and move to closed session. Closed meeting will be held for the purpose authorized by the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, concerning any and all purposes permitted by the Act, including but not limited to the following sections and purposes. Texas Government Code Section 551.071, consultation with the board's attorney on all subjects or matter authorized by law. Consider legal advice regarding personnel issues. Consider legal advice regarding any agenda action item. 2, Texas Government Code Section 551.074 for the purpose of considering the appointment, employment, resignation, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, termination, or dismissal of a public officer or employee. 2A, a closed session pursuant to Section 551.074 of the Texas Government Code to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, or to include consideration of employee resignation for good cause. And are we doing it here?
No.
Okay, so you guys can remain seated. We're going to exit to the conference room and we'll be back after closed session. It is 8:14.
You're going where?
Back for me.
Can't see it's dark.
Okay, ready?
We're in the dark.
We're coming back into open session at 8:36 p.m. We have to consider approval of professional new hires and ratification of employee contracts. Is there any discussion? If not, can I get a motion?
I move that we accept the
Personnel report as presented?
yeah.
Motion by Bonnie and a second by Ann.
Motion by Bonnie, second by Ann. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Do we have anything on the secretary report that needs to be announced? Okay, we have board pictures on June 27th at 4 p.m. Our call board meeting, our next one is June 27th at 5:30 p.m. We need to.
Pictures before.
Yep.
There is a possibility, and it's a fairly strong one, that I will not be here on the 27th. I'll have to call in. My wife is having knee surgery Monday the 26th. She'll be in the hospital for 1 or 2 nights, so I'll probably be with her.
Okay, well, we can move the pictures if that's how it is, okay?
Okay.
And then regular board meeting, July 18th. If there's no other discussion, the meeting is adjourned at 8:37.